Good evening, everybody. My name is Luke Mortensen, and tonight I am with Catherine Week, Staff Liaison to the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'll quickly run through our little spiel, and then we can get going. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distractions during the meeting. When the chair calls for public comment, folks in the room, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants, if there are any, should use the raise hand function to turn your camera on to provide your comments. Please state your name and zip code before speaking. The city reserves the right to turn off videos or mute participants. All comments will be limited to that's not for us. The primary format for accessing and participating in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. And with that, I will pass it to Catherine to check for quorum tonight.
All right, good evening, board members. I'm going to go ahead and call attendance for this evening. Palos?
Here.
Peterson?
Here.
Rankin?
Here.
Sinkler? Shalinsky?
Here.
Shanuda?
Here.
Watkins?
Here.
And we do have quorum. Thank you very much.
All right. Welcome to the September 4th meeting for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Moving right along through the agenda, communications. Are there any communications we need to acknowledge that came before the board?
We don't have any additional communications for you.
All right. Any board members disclose of any ex parte communications and or abstentions, for specific agenda items?
No.
I went to the site and ran into somebody that worked there and asked them if it was okay if I inspected it, and I said yes.
Okay. All right, moving along. Any agenda items that will be deferred?
We have no items that will be deferred this evening.
Excellent. Let's move right along. Minutes. This is to approve the minutes from the last board meeting, July 3rd. I will go ahead and sit this one out since I was not in attendance, but do we want to review or any?
I move to approve the minutes from July 3rd, 2025 meeting.
I think we need a second.
We have a second? I didn't hear a second. Do we have a second? No.
No, second.
Second. Okay. So a motion and a second. I'll go ahead and take votes. Palos?
Aye.
Peterson?
I'll abstain. Wasn't present.
Rankin?
I will also abstain.
Shalinsky?
I also abstain.
Okay. Shanuda?
Aye.
And Watkins?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion does carry.
All right. Moving along to our first agenda item under public hearing. Consider a request for variance number BZA-25-0007. Does staff want to run through the report?
Yes, and before I get started, I'll just quickly note, you've probably noticed this is 2 variance requests for one property. We split it up that way because one variance is a traditional variance and the second variance is from the floodplain management regulation. So to make everything clean and a little bit more clear, we've separated them into 2 variances. So we'll start with the first one. As Chair Rankin just noted, the first public hearing item is a variance from the maximum front building setback standard for a lot in the mixed corridor, that's the M3 zoning district. The request is to increase the maximum front building setback from 25 feet to 210 feet at the property addressed 952 North 3rd Street. So I'll quickly run through the 5 criteria. Criteria 1 focuses on uniqueness based on a subject property's plating or zoning. The subject property is an approximately 1.1 acre platted lot located on the east side of the North 3rd Street right-of-way, and it abuts the City of Lawrence's boundary with the unincorporated Douglas County area. The subject property was platted in 1986, but annexed into the city in 2 different periods. The western half was annexed into the city in 1957, and the eastern half was annexed in 2003. Per Douglas County records and city site planning history, the subject property's 3 existing buildings were constructed approximately in 1978, 1990, and 2007. The building constructed in 2007 was the only building to be constructed while fully located within the City of Lawrence. The subject property is a platted, rectangular-shaped lot. The multi-year, multi-stage annexation status of the subject property does not constitute a condition of uniqueness, as 4 other properties along the immediate segment of North 3rd Street were annexed into the City of Lawrence also over multiple years. There is an exhibit of these lots located in the staff report. Some of these lots share similar characteristics to the subject property, including similar lot widths and lot depths. Staff could not determine a condition of uniqueness that warrants an increase in the maximum building setback dimension. Criteria 2 focuses on the potential adverse effects upon the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. In staff's opinion, the requested variance would not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. A new vehicle storage building with an increased maximum front setback amount would not restrict the adjacent property owners, residents, or tenants from maintaining their existing land uses. Criteria 3 focuses on unnecessary hardships. In staff's opinion, strict adherence to the Land Development Code would not constitute an unnecessary hardship as defined by the Land Development Code and included within the staff report. The proposed variance request would be an accommodation of a specific design and site planning preference rather than a relief mechanism to mitigate an arbitrary and capricious interference with the applicant's basic right of property ownership. An increase in the maximum front building setback is not the minimum action necessary to establish or maintain a compliant land use, and a denial would not deprive the applicants of their property without compensation. It could constitute an increase in development rights not available to nearby property owners. The subject property could continue to operate as a compliant land use without this variance. Criteria 4 focuses on the adverse effects on the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare. In staff's opinion, granting the requested variance would not create an adverse impact upon the above listed items. The request in question is contained within the parcel owned by the applicants, and an increased maximum building setback would not create any spillover or noxious effects to the surrounding area. A new vehicle parking structure would require a site plan, which includes review against the remaining standards of the Land Development Code. The 5th and final criteria focuses on the general spirit and intent of the code. In staff's opinion, approval of this variance is inconsistent with the spirit and intent of the Land Development Code. The variance process is intended to equalize the development process for properties that exhibit unique conditions and mitigate unnecessary hardships caused by strict adherence to the Land Development Code. The intent of the mixed corridor district's maximum front setback is to pull buildings, structures, and principal land uses closer towards the public right-of-way to establish an architecturally defined built environment with fewer expanses of surface parking lots and open space between buildings and roads. The current mixed corridor district was the previous commercial strip district under the old Land Development Code. The previous commercial strip district did not have a maximum front building setback. The community, the Land Development Code Steering Committee, the Planning Commission, and the City Commission agreed that a maximum front building setback should be required for development in the newly adopted mixed corridor district. The city's new Land Development Code was adopted in 2024 and went into effect in April 2025. The standards of the Land Development Code are applied evenly and equally to developing and redeveloping properties so that over time, sometimes decades, the goals of the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan are met. The subject property is at the front of the line. This standard will be applied to future development in the mixed corridor district across the City of Lawrence. It is not the intent of the code to immediately grant a variance from the newly adopted standards. To conclude, staff does not believe the request satisfies all 5 criteria required to obtain a variance. The variance process is intended to equalize the development such that remarkably unique properties can establish code-compliant land uses in a comparable manner to code-compliant land uses in the same zone or district. The request at hand is a preferred design or site planning alternative rather than the final relief mechanism available to establish a code-compliant land use. Staff recommends denial of this requested variance to increase the maximum front setback for a lot in the mixed corridor district for the property address as 952 North 3rd Street. With that, I'll wrap up this specific variance. We will want to take a vote on this one before moving on to the next one, and our applicant is with us tonight as well. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Luke. Any board members have any questions for staff?
I do. Has this been applied anywhere else in the city at this point?
I don't.
The 25-foot setback max?
Yeah, I don't know if we have released any site plans yet. So if a site plan came in April, it's not uncommon that it would still be under review in September. I do know that there are projects in the same M3 district in other parts of Lawrence that are being reviewed against that same maximum setback standards. There's a Wendy's being rebuilt on 23rd Street, and they are moving their structure closer to 23rd Street to come into compliance with that setback or that maximum setback standard.
Okay.
We have not approved or released that site plan yet.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
When the new code was adopted, I'm assuming that is when the zoning was changed?
So the code was adopted, like the vote on adoption was in 2024. The effective date was set for several months later to give staff time to prepare and change applications and all that sort of thing. So the new zoning district, the M3 district, went live on April 1st, 2025. That's our effective date.
Okay, so essentially, the zoning was changed by the code and not by the choice of the owner to select select the zoning for their property.
So part of the
Is that correct?
Almost correct. So part of the new land development code, I think it's in Article 2, there's a conversion table, which pretty neatly shows what each district converted to automatically. So people didn't get the option to pick what their new district would be under the new land development code. They just automatically converted. So every CS district property automatically converted to the M3 district on April 1st.
Okay, so if somebody didn't want to be in the M3 district, they would have to submit a rezoning application.
That's correct.
Well, as a follow-up to his question, are there districts where that 25-foot setback maximum doesn't apply, that are commercial districts that?
Well, so the maximum setback district, I can double check, but off the top of my head, the M3 district is the only one with a maximum setback. Most of the others have your standard minimum front setback.
Okay, and so this went from a commercial designation to an industrial designation, no?
No, so the M3, the M stands for mixed use.
Oh, okay.
And so we actually, I can double check, but we got rid of our principal C districts. So our commercial only districts went away and were converted to mixed use districts.
I got it.
All right. If we have no other questions for staff, the applicant's here. Do you have any comments?
My name is Alan Balat, and I represent Larry ADJOURN. On May 24th, May 23rd, 2004, a site plan was submitted for this property, showing exactly what we're talking about right now with some modifications. It was resubmitted on January 25th of 2025, still in the old code. During the reviewing process, the zone change. The next report I got was that you're going to have to change everything on your code. Okay, you're going to have to change your whole code or your site plan because it's now under the new code. It doesn't seem fair to me that the city is allowing you to change their codes in the middle of the process. Okay, and that's what my question is. You know, is it fair that we've been working on this since May of 2024, and all of a sudden, just before it changes, we're working on a new code, okay? And I don't think that's fair.
All right. Any board members have any questions?
Well, I guess I have a question of staff related to his comment, which I understand, Alan. And so does staff have an explanation for why or how this came about, that it was submitted, as I understand?
For that building permit,
Okay.
came in on April 24th, 2025, after the effective date of the new code.
So the applicant was instructed that they needed to submit a site plan
That's correct.
in addition to the building permit,
That's correct, to obtain the building permit.
to obtain the building permit, okay.
And at that time, the new code kicked in, correct?
Correct, on April 1st, about 24 days previously.
A site plan was submitted on May 14th, 2024. A site plan, okay? That site plan should have stated all the way through for you to come back and say in April of this year, we have to change the code is not right, okay? And that code also included a picture of what they were proposing, okay? So for you're reversing what's happened in real life, okay? There was a site plan required in May of 2024, not a building code, a site plan. And the comment I got back from site plan or from staff was, you have to submit the building permit along with the site plan before we can hear this. And it took them a while to get that thing going, so we didn't get it all in until January of 25th of 2025, okay? It's a little bit different.
So you had a site plan and a building permit submitted for approval prior to the date that the code went into effect. Is that what you're saying?
Site plan was submitted on January or May 24th or March 2024. Then it was resubmitted with a building drawing on, let's see, January 25th of 2025. Okay?
So the site plan was submitted with the building permit, and then there was a request for a new site plan. Is that what happened?
No, I don't know what happened there. There's been a whole lot of stuff going on here, kind of like the application for this setback. I didn't get this until 4 days before it had to be submitted. Okay? So this whole thing's been screwed up as far as our client is concerned, is that we were going on one set of rules, and all of a sudden that rule changed. Okay?
So, Alan, February 7th, you submitted a building permit, correct? 2024?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, in May of 24,
That was
I
the site
came
plan.
Site plan.
Yeah, but the building permit was already submitted before the site plan.
No, that was
Okay.
a condition of getting that site plan completed or submitted, was I had to have the building permit or the building drawings submitted along with the site plan. But the site plan had already been submitted, okay?
We have significant email communication between Alan and a previous architect who was talking about this site. I don't have a 2024 site plan application in our system.
So the May
That's your
14th
problem, not mine.
The May 14th site plan, you don't have a, you
I
don't
don't
have
know
it.
what he's referring to.
You didn't go live until the January of April 25, okay? So you wouldn't have one in your system.
Our system, this EPL system has been in place since February of 2024.
I talked to Becky Pepper right after this site plan was completed and said, you'll need to send the site plan and the building permit along to get the process started, okay?
Do you have a site plan number that starts with SP-24?
I don't know. I don't know right now, because this is very confusing, and you're not very cooperative on it either, okay?
Can I ask a question very quickly? When you submit like a site plan and a building plan, do they get like a confirmation email or any sort of confirmation number when these things are submitted?
It starts a whole project tracking system in our online portal.
Okay.
So you get a number assigned, and you get a whole little workflow assigned.
And that's something he should have access to, correct?
And so that's why I'm asking if there's a site plan number with 2024, I could search for that. We can search by property address to see what has been applied for that property, and I don't have a 2024 site plan application for this property.
Okay, thank you.
I went through the site plan process, and I filed an application, and I took a site plan to this website, and that's how Becky Pepper contacted me, okay? So the communication is not with you, not me, okay? We were doing everything that was right. I don't think you were committed just to us, okay?
I got a question, Alan.
Yes.
This is about a maximum building setback variance, and I see your building is proposed for right in the middle of the site on the south side.
Mm-hmm.
Did you contemplate trying to conform to the maximum building setback requirement, or was it?
As I said, all they wanted to do was build a building over of an existing property area, or property pave area, okay? That's all they wanted to do. And I thought that the site plan that we sent originally with the 25-foot setback would be the way that we were going to do. Luke came over less than 5 days before the application was due and said, oh, by the way, you got to have this site plan application for a 212-foot variance. And first of all, I was kind of, whoa, this is kind of, and then he said, I could if I wanted to, I could wait another 30 days. And we decided just to go ahead and try to submit it as quickly as possible and deal with it later.
But does this building work 25 feet from the front setback area?
No.
Line?
No, it was because this is with the old site plan. This is the old setbacks that we were working with till, I don't have the date, but it was sometime in late in September. No,
Project date.
I lose track of my date. It was probably early August, late.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing you say that you located the building where you already had paved surfaces. Is that-
Yes.
Okay.
All they wanted to do was cover that building. That was all, okay?
Staff, did I read
And this really should be heard second from the building and the floodplain. That's really the way it ought to do, okay? And we ought to be hearing this one later, okay?
the impervious surface should go first?
That should go first.
Did I read a note that the building as it's laid out is in the floodplain? Or in the flood?
No, the whole building, the whole site is in the floodplain, and there's no question about that. And parking structures are the one structure that can be built in the floodplain. That's the only one you can build in a floodplain, okay?
And that's all accurate, staff?
There's several uses that can be put in a floodplain, so long as they meet the floodplain management regulations. It's not specific to a fleet storage
But fleet storage would be
building.
allowed in the
Correct.
floodplain.
You can make many types of buildings and many types of uses comply with the floodplain management regulations.
The easiest is to use a site plan or a property building. That's the easy thing to do, and it says so in the site in the ordinance. Okay, it says so. Okay, so what other you have to do, I don't know, but what you're allowed to do in the floodplain is you can build a building that's used for parking. Okay,
And it looks like this property was being used for parking.
all over. It's always been parking.
Thank you.
All right, any other board members have any questions?
Well, I'm having a hard time seeing it, but when you go to the site plan that was submitted, that Alan submitted, it says it's dated, I think 6/24/04, or yeah. And
What page is that on?
And then I'm not sure what page
I
it's on.
apologize.
It's on page 16 of 45, I think. If you go to the site plan,
Okay.
but,
Thank you.
So just a point of clarity, just because documents have dates on them doesn't mean those are the submittal.
I
Yeah,
get that.
okay.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of struggling with Alan's belief that he submitted a site plan and that there's not evidence of it. And here's the drawing that looks like that this is what they originally submitted. Is this what you originally submitted back
That's what I submitted in,
in 2024?
yeah, in April, or May of 2024.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. But there's no record of it, apparently. Is that, am I right?
I don't have record of a
There
2024.
possibly can be
Okay.
confusing here. I submit a site plan, and I submitted a site plan, an application, okay? I believe I may have sent a fee, but I'm not sure.
There was a building permit submitted in 2024.
Okay.
Which was
But no
February,
site plan.
right?
What?
February.
Or
I
January.
can look, hold on.
No,
Those
no,
dates were this year.
Yeah.
There was a building permit in November of '24. It was for electrical work, so it
Oh,
wasn't.
okay. It wasn't a building permit.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was one, okay.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
The May 14th site plan was a site plan, okay? And it says a site plan. and it's a site plan. There's nothing else with it on the title. It says nothing about a building permit. It says a site plan, okay? It's always my understanding that when you submit the site plan, as those requirements or the reviews take place, that site plan survives throughout the process with revisions. All we were doing was making revisions that I thought for the building. And it took a while to get that done, okay? But once we got it done, we set it up, and we were still within the old zoning ordinance, okay? And then through one of the processes of review, it come back that you're going to have to renew the whole site plan because we're under a new variance, a new ordinance, okay? And I just don't think that's not fair.
Okay, so I'm looking at this drawing, and it has several dates on it,
Yes.
starting in '04 and going up to 5/14/24 and 1/25/25, all of which were before the effective date of the code change. And then we've got 4/10/25, 5/20/25, and 8/26/25. That's in terms of when drawings were done.
And when
It doesn't say when it was submitted, and what we have here is your representation that it was submitted in '24, and staff's representation that there's nothing in their system that shows that. That's really kind of,
okay,
that's
I'll just.
that's what I'm sitting here with.
Okay. I have been here longer than Luke has been alive, okay? And when I put a date on something, that's what I submitted, okay? You can make book on that. I don't put a date on it until it goes out, okay?
Okay, I was not accusing
Okay,
you
I'm
of
just saying.
lying, by the way. I was just saying that these are the pieces of information that are in front of me. I'm not saying anyone is being
I
untruthful.
mean, it goes back all the way back to 2000, I think 2 or 3, where the first site plan was submitted. There's been a whole lot of things going on.
So there were, if you don't mind me, there were approved site plans prior, I think, Luke, you might double check the date, either in 2006 or 2007 when it was
It's in the staff report.
completed. Yeah, I think it's in the staff report. And sometimes when new projects come forward, and I am not saying that this is what happened here, but previous site plans that were approved are used as the basis for revisions for building permits to show what is going to be happening on the site. That could be a scenario where the dates get confusing because it looks like it's a document that's been constantly reviewed or revised, but in the middle, there was an approval of something, and then that document potentially could have been used to create a new document that they're updating or revising to get new approvals for something. So that is a scenario.
To jump off of that, I'm sorry, we might be getting a little confusing. When we say we don't see a site plan from 2024, we mean we don't see a site plan application where they show a revision to a previously approved site plan. So when we say, oh, we need a site plan, we should be saying we need a site plan application to show your proposed revisions or your proposed improvements.
Okay.
I can't tell you that because I'm not here. I could tell you if I go into my file and I could tell you what I took out. If it's not there, I don't know. But a site plan was submitted, because that's the answer I got back a few weeks later with Peggy Beckler about how it needs to be revised. And these revises take place all the time. That's why there's so many dates. Every time a building or a drawing goes out, it gets a date on it so that we can keep track of what the things are done.
Can I ask if you emailed it to Becky Pepper, or did you submit it to the portal?
I submitted, I don't know, but this was 2.5 years, a year and a half ago. I don't know. I submitted it in my site plan file. It's in the site plan. I can't tell you right now because I don't have access to it, okay? But Becky responded with that on what I needed to do. That this wasn't complete, I needed to give you a building drawing.
And was this all done verbally, like over the phone, or is there email communications of that exchange?
She called me about this because I have a relationship with Becky that's different than most of the people on the planning commission, okay? So she called me and told me that you're gonna have to submit a building permit or a building site plan or building plan along with that site plan in order to complete the project, assuming that I would be able to get that done right away, okay?
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right. Staff, do we need a motion to, I don't know, close or open up to any public comment, or?
You would need to open it first before you can close it. So if you don't have any additional questions for the applicant, then this would be a good time to open public comment.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, is there anybody in person or online for public comment? Yeah, go, come up.
Natalia Lowther. My address is 1480 North 1700 Road. I have several parcels adjacent to that don't have addresses. One of them is a 10-acre farm ground parcel that adjoins, runs along the east side of Maple Grove tributary, due east of the applicant's property. And I've owned that property for 30 years. The north end of it has 28-year-old pecan trees that I planted from seed that are now bearing. I come to every public hearing that could impact the floodwater, stormwater management along Maple Grove tributary, because my property where the pecan grove is the first place where floodwater spreads out if the pump station is not sufficiently managing it. Relative to this variance that we're discussing, I have a lot more comments on the BZA 25-8, and I'll save that for those. But the thing that caught my eye on the plan that was with the staff report is that under stormwater management, there's a note that says, per city code, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, SWP3, is not required on lots less than 1 acre. And then the legal description at the top of the column indicates that the lot is 1.1 acre. And I could not find where an SWP3 had been provided with the application, and was interested in seeing that. And then my other question on that drawing was that the south elevation shows 12 large stay wall pet door or equal. And I'm wondering about the relevance of pet doors to a parking structure. That just seemed really curious to me. And of course, if there are animals being kenneled there, then there's kennel waste, and something isn't just for vehicle storage, and I don't know. I just notice things and ask questions. So regarding the whole difficulty of going through the planning process and the permitting process while there are other activities going on that are changing regulations. This is something that I have dealt with for 30 years, and I empathize with the applicant. The applicant has been over there pretty much the whole time I've owned my farm and never seen a problem with what they do over there. I have found that I really have to keep asking questions and keep getting things in writing about, are there other things going on while we're doing this? Are these regulations going to change while I'm doing this? Because the regulations for my property have changed unbelievably over the 30 years, and it's really hard. But you know, I can't tell you what to do in this circumstance. But I personally don't think it matters what the setback is. The stormwater is still going to end up on my farm.
Can I respond?
Well, I would like to ask a question first, just to make sure that I understand. You are not speaking either in favor of or against the setback variance. Is that what I'm hearing?
I agree with the applicant that it would have been better to address the second variance first. I'm going to be very much opposed to the second variance. I'll just say that. As far as whether that building is 25 feet or 250 feet, I don't see that making a material difference to my concern, which is stormwater. Given the limit, what I've just learned here about the limitations, I haven't studied up on city zoning because I'm in the county. I would be willing to give the applicant the benefit of the doubt that this got switched up and that the city could have done more about being clear that, hey, I've been talking to, if Becky Pepper's been talking to you for all this time and knows you're working on a project, I would feel like it would be Becky's responsibility to say, hey, are you aware of this other thing going on that may affect this? I know when my zoning was changed against my will for my farm ground to a designation that I do not support, I I was told it was happening and that there really wasn't anything I could do about it, and it was being changed. And so, you know, on a farm, things move really slowly. It may take me 10 years to get a plan to the point where I am submitting an application for it. And in that amount of time, I may have the rug pulled out from under that planning process 2 or 3 times. I may be told no 1 month, and then a month later they change the regulations and say yes to the next person. It's very frustrating. I feel your frustration. I would not be disappointed if you approve this variance.
Thank you.
Do you want to do virtual first?
Yeah, let's check
Yeah.
if there's a virtual public comment.
I'm not, there's no Zoom public comment.
Okay. All right. Sure.
I just want to say that with the demise of the Jayhawk Motel, and there is just, if you drive by that piece of North 2nd, it's really kind of a wasteland, and any new development, new landscaping, better maintenance, et cetera, is going to improve the entrance to the city. And things are not going to stay the same forever. They'll probably change their plans someday, and stuff can be addressed then. But it is kind of a blight, that whole stretch. There's a number of properties that are just very minimally maintained. And so a new building, whether it's 25 feet or 250 feet back, is going to be something looking like it's positive there.
Sure. Thanks. Anybody want to make a motion to close public comment?
Yeah, I'll move to close public comment.
I'll second.
We can do a show of hands for closing public comment, and the motion carries unanimously.
Alan, you want to rebut?
Say what?
Would you like to respond?
To this lady?
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's, Ellen said it.
She just asked a couple of questions. She asked about the doors. That is a requirement for a building that's in a floodplain. It has to have 1 square inch of dividing area for one floor of the building. So that's why those doors are there. So they open and close automatically. And if water comes in, it goes out. It's free flowing, okay? That's all, okay?
Thank you for clarifying. I learned something.
That's a creative way to do
They
it.
should call them flood control doors.
All right.
They're pet doors.
So back to the board. Anybody want to start off?
Sure. I went by and looked at the site, and I have to wonder about the zoning conversion. There is hardly any building along that stretch of roadway that is less than 25 feet from 3rd Street. You know, everything is set back more than that. Now, once you get closer in along like North 2nd Street, yeah, you've got a lot of building that's sort of more urban in character that is closer to the street. But along that stretch, the idea that this is eventually supposed to be a pedestrian area is just ridiculous. Everything is set back. And if it's a floodplain, you can't even build anything there that would be a pedestrian accessed business. So if that's the justification for the zoning, honestly, it makes no sense to me. If you're going to park cars there, who cares where the building is? So with the applicant's contention of when the site plan was submitted, and with just looking at the site, and I know that there's a lot of growing pains that went along with this transition, I can't really see a reason not to grant this. I think it is unique enough because it is a floodplain, because of the circumstances, that I don't have a problem with the setback. Once we get to the permeable surface, that's another question. And I haven't made up my mind there because I haven't heard all of the information yet, but that is way more concerning to me than where a building is located. So I would be inclined to vote for this part of it.
Anybody?
I guess my general concern is that, like, I believe that he tried to or did submit the site plan, but we don't have any record of that out of him telling us, at least at this board, the information that we have. But we do have our planners telling us that they did not receive one. And from a fairness standpoint, I don't want to get into a scenario where we have more people as we transition into a new code who maybe use the same reasoning of, I thought I submitted something. I don't think that that's great. Like, if he submitted the plan, he should absolutely be able to have the maximums, like, go under the 06 codes, but we don't seem to have any record of it. And that concerns me.
And
Before Monday night, I would have agreed with you, but when I saw what happened with the Rhode Island Street thing and the lack of information that people were working with,
Okay.
I can see where records sometimes aren't always there that should be.
I want to just mention one thing. Part of our duty or whatever's Board of Zoning Appeals is not to grant variances just because we think the code is unfair. I'll leave it at that.
Variances are to be granted on the 5 criteria for
Exactly.
variances. And the staff believes that 2 and 4 have been met. Dean, you want to go?
Well, I'm just, regardless of fairness, I don't know the answer. I'm sorry. I know how those things happen. And it's unfortunate, but regardless, I think there's enough circumstances with this site as far as its condition is unique. It's a long, narrow, what we used to call in planning, a piano key. It's a difficult lot to develop. There may be similar lots that are diverse in the area, but that doesn't disqualify the lot itself from being unique. So I think it meets that condition. I think the hardship condition somewhat relates to the fact that there was an application someone submitted early on. I think that the location within the floodplain does create a hardship, and we're going to address that separately. I have kind of the same reservations I suspect some of you also have about that. But regardless, as far as the site itself, I think it meets the hardship requirement. Staff agrees there's no adverse effect on the neighbors, and that it doesn't affect the public health, safety, and welfare, and that by its very nature, he's asking for a variance that meets the spirit and intent of the regulations that allow for it, given the circumstances. So I think this site request for the maximum setback, I have my own feelings about it as well, but regardless, there it is, and I think there's other conditions that are sufficient to move this forward. So I'll if there's opposition, I'll wait, but I would otherwise make a motion to approve it.
I believe, Luke, you had.
Yep.
I'll second.
I just wanted to, while you finished talking, you had asked a question about other districts with maximum setback, and I wanted
Yeah.
to get you that before you finished your
okay,
discussion.
sure.
So there are 4 M districts, M1, M2, or excuse me, there are 3 M districts, M1, M2, M3. They all have a maximum front setback.
Of 25 feet?
I can do that more quickly.
And one's gonna be really low.
The M1 is a maximum of 25. The M2 is a maximum of 25. The M3 is a maximum of 25, and then there are 2 more. The Commercial Center District has a maximum front setback of 12 feet, so that's
Yeah.
different. And then the CD, that's the Downtown Commercial District,
Yeah.
that has a maximum of 5 feet.
5 feet.
So there you go.
And I'll say, I don't dispute that or disagree with that. I understand what you're trying to do. I think the city's trying to get parking out of the front yard, basically.
So
And
I
that's a
think-
measure of how, an approach. And we're banging into it already with a unique situation, which I can't say how much I think this is really unique, kind of all the way around.
So I think between your talking and Luke, we had like a motion and a shadow second. Is that correct? Like, I think Barry, didn't you second?
Dean made a motion, and I seconded it, yes, that we approve the request to vary from the 25-foot maximum to the 200-odd, whatever it was.
So the chair does have the option to continue discussion or call for the vote. I can do either, or if you're ready for a vote, the chair can do that.
I think
Said my
everybody's,
piece.
yeah, I think everybody said their thoughts. I think we're ready to vote.
Ready? Okay. Palos,
Aye?
Peterson,
Nay.
Rankin,
Nay.
Shalinski,
Yes?
Shanuda,
Yes.
Watkins,
Yes.
and the motion does carry.
All right. Thank you. Let's move on to the second agenda item. Also at the same property. Staff, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, thank you. As Chair Rankin just noted, tonight's second public hearing item is a variance from the maximum impervious surface coverage amount in the floodplain overlay district. The request is to increase the maximum impervious surface coverage amount for non-residential construction in the floodplain overlay district from a maximum permitted of 60% to 67.5% for the property addressed as 952 North 3rd Street. So as you all are aware, part of your purview as Board of Zoning Appeals is considering variances. In addition, you can consider variances from the floodplain management regulations. So there are the 5 standard criteria that need to be met, and then there are several additional floodplain specific criteria. I'm going to just run through the standard 5, and I think a better use of our time is to have maybe more of just a discussion about the remaining criteria if you have specific questions or comments, and addressing them in a more targeted manner.
But to be clear, they have to meet all of the criteria.
That's correct. So same thing, all 5 standard criteria need to be met, and then the additional floodplain criteria need to be met. The standard ones, some of them will sound very similar because obviously we're working with the same property, and some of the criteria analysis will be very similar. I will do my best to let you know when it differs from the first variance. So, as you know, criteria number 1 focuses on uniqueness based on a subject property's plating or zoning. This is going to be similar to the previous variance request. The subject property is an approximately 1.1 acre platted lot located on the east side of North 3rd Street right-of-way, and it abuts the city's boundary with the unincorporated Douglas County area. Subject property was platted in 1986, but annexed during 2 different periods. That was 1957, the west piece, and the eastern half in 2003. We've kind of gone over the estimated dates of construction of the buildings, 1978, 1990, and 2007. As discussed previously, the multi-year, multi-stage annexation status of the subject property does not constitute a condition of uniqueness, as 4 other properties along the immediate segment of North 3rd Street were annexed into the city of Lawrence similarly over multiple years. And as previously noted, some of these lots share similar characteristics to the subject property, including similar lot widths and lot depths. The subject property is partially encumbered by the FEMA-mapped regulatory floodplain, and it is fully encumbered by the floodplain overlay district. Adjacent and abutting properties are also partially or fully encumbered by the FEMA-mapped regulatory floodplain and/or the floodplain overlay district. A significant portion of North Lawrence is encumbered by the regulatory floodplain. These adjacent and abutting lots would be subject to the same floodplain management regulations as the applicant. Staff could not determine a condition of uniqueness that warrants an increase in the maximum impervious surface coverage amount for non-residential construction in the floodplain overlay district. So criteria number 2, this focuses on adverse effects upon the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. In this specific variance request, staff's opinion is that this variance could adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. An increase above the normally permitted maximum impervious surface coverage amount could result in increased surface water runoff that could impact adjacent properties. Impervious surface standards exist to cap the amount of impervious surface on a property. This allows for proper drainage and absorption of flood and storm waters during flooding events. Criteria number 3 focuses on unnecessary hardship. This will be similar to the first variance. In staff's opinion, strict adherence to the Land Development Code would not constitute an unnecessary hardship as defined by the Land Development Code and included within the staff report. The proposed variance would again be an accommodation of a specific design and site planning preference, rather than a relief mechanism to mitigate an arbitrary and capricious interference with the applicant's basic right of property ownership. An increase in the maximum impervious surface coverage amount in the floodplain overlay district is not the minimum action necessary to establish or maintain a compliant land use, and a denial tonight would not deprive the applicants of their property without compensation. It could constitute an increase in development rights not available to nearby property owners. The applicant could reduce the impervious surface coverage on the subject property and construct the proposed vehicle storage structure without a variance from this section. That could be achieved by removing a portion of the existing off-street parking area or adding interior parking lot landscaping islands to increase the property's pervious surface total. The subject property could continue to operate as a compliant land use without this variance. Criteria number 4 focuses on the adverse effects on the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare. On this specific variance request, staff's opinion is that granting the requested variance could create an adverse impact above the previously listed items. The request in question is contained within the parcel owned by the applicants. However, maintaining a non-compliant impervious surface coverage amount could affect the health and safety of adjacent properties. The maximum of 60% impervious surface coverage in the floodplain overlay district is a balance between a property's maximum development potential and its responsibility to mitigate exposure of adjacent properties to hazardous conditions. The fifth and final of the general criteria is the general spirit and intent of the Land Development Code. In staff's opinion, approval of this variance is inconsistent with the spirit and intent of the Land Development Code. The variance process is intended to equalize the development process for properties that exhibit unique conditions, and mitigate unnecessary hardships caused by the strict adherence to the code. The intent of the maximum impervious surface coverage amounts for non-residential construction in the floodplain overlay district and the overall floodplain management regulations is to protect people, property, and the environment from the adverse effects of flooding events. Additionally, this 60% standard helps Lawrence achieve and maintain reduced flood insurance rates as a participating community within the FEMA Community Rating System program. Our community has voluntarily adopted higher regulatory standards than required by FEMA in order to provide property owners the opportunity to purchase flood insurance policies at reduced rates. Staff does not believe, well, okay, and I'll take a pause. This is where we normally would continue. We can discuss the floodplain specific criteria here in a minute if you have questions. But to conclude, staff does not believe that the request satisfies all 5 standard criteria or the remaining floodplain specific criteria required to obtain a variance. The variance process is intended to equalize the development process such that remarkably unique properties can establish code-compliant land uses in a comparable manner to other code-compliant land uses in the same zone or district. The request at hand is a preferred design or site planning alternative rather than the final relief mechanism required to establish a code-compliant land use at this property. Staff recommends denial of the requested variance to increase the maximum impervious surface coverage amount for non-residential construction in the floodplain overlay district for the property address as 952 North 3rd Street. And as before, our applicant is with us tonight.
All right, thanks, Luke. Do any board members have any questions for staff?
Hey, Luke, I have a question. You said we do 60% so we can keep our costs down for residents, for FEMA, for flood insurance, because we can only buy it from the government.
That's correct.
What is FEMA standard? Is it 50, 60, 55? We do 60. What is the requirement?
So FEMA does not have a requirement.
Okay.
We have adopted a higher regulatory standard. It's 60% for non-residential construction and 30% for residential construction.
Okay.
Another example of a higher regulatory standard is FEMA has a 1-foot elevation requirement above the base flood elevation. When we have, for residential uses, we require 2 feet.
Okay.
So those are some examples of how we earn our points in that CRS program.
Got you.
How long have the floodplain regulations been in effect?
We might check with Amy, I think she's with us, but we've had floodplain management regulations at least from the 1966 zoning code.
They didn't just change in April.
Correct. Those were carried over evenly. Changing the floodplain management regulations is a completely different process. It involves the state of Kansas. It involves FEMA. Those remained the same from the code change.
And I might add, this particular standard with the impervious surface has been in the code since the early 2000s and has not changed at that 60% or 30% level since then.
If no other questions from the board, staff? I think applicants.
Well, yeah, I do. I have a question. I think I read somewhere in the report that you were indicating that it's conceivable that they could eliminate some of the impervious surface and satisfy the requirements.
That is possible. You could remove some of the existing impervious surface. I don't think they would probably want to be willing to get rid of building coverage space.
No.
But they could remove off-street parking area, other pervious surfaces.
Great.
Ready? First of all, I want to stipulate that the pervious surfaces is synonymous with building coverage and/or floodplain coverage, okay? They're one and the same. The other is the total of the whole buildings and paving on this property are the total pervious surfaces located on this property. It's important. The property and the pervious surfaces represent the total of what we're being asked to do, okay? In other words, it's already here, and it's been here for years, okay? Really, all we're asking for is us to ratify what we've got. And we can go ahead and build a building with that, but if we can't, we'll just leave it like it is. No problem.
You're saying that the condition is not getting worse?
Well, it's been this way for years, for 25 years that I know of.
You're not
That
increasing?
this is the property. This is the property. Regardless of what the contours say, what the zoning photo says, this is what it is, okay? So we come in here and we want to do something, and we're hit with this requirement that we have to do something different. Well, in order to do something different, we have to cut away things, and we don't have to do that. We can just leave things the way they are, okay? Does that make sense?
I'm not clear. Are you saying that
I'm
property right now is at 67%? Is that what it is now?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And it's been that way for,
The total pervious surfaces, buildings plus pavement,
Yeah.
is 31,494 square feet. Okay, that's the increase. That's it. Okay. So it's it's more than what's required, but this is what we've got. So what we need to do is we need to get a variance to ratify what we have, is really what this is, okay? Does that make sense?
yeah.
I think what you're saying, what I'm hearing is that by adding a building, you're not increasing the amount of impervious surface because it's going over paved area.
There's no difference. There's no difference in impervious surfaces
Before
or buildings, okay? They're the same, okay? And so you got impervious surfaces and pervious surfaces. So it wouldn't make any difference where the paving was there, which is now, or we cover it with a building, and it's the same difference. It's the same thing.
All right, I think Luke has.
Yep, I agree with Alan. If it's at 67.5% impervious today, when a site plan application comes through, it's assigned a level, a standard or a major. This was a standard. When you have a standard site plan, the new elements to the property, the new improvements have to be code compliant. If there's something on the property that does not comply with that current code, it does not necessarily have to come into compliance at that time. That's kind of striking the balance of making sure we don't hit everybody with the book all at once. There is a provision in our code that allows the planning director to determine that he can select elements of a site that need to come into compliance, even if they're not being directly touched by that proposed improvement. Now, we believe that this proposed improvement is tied to the impervious surface of the site. But in addition to that, the planning director determined that being in compliance with our floodplain management regulations is so important to our code that that was an element that he specifically said, even with this standard site plan, the impervious surface total should be brought into compliance from the existing 67.5 to the required 60%.
So you're saying currently he's at 67.5, and the director says, I got to get it down to 60.
He's saying our code identifies floodplain management regulations as that important that I would like this piece to come into compliance.
So you're asking him to remove some surfaces?
That's correct.
We would never agree with that. We just walk out of here and we're done, because what we have is what we have, okay? We've got 67%, we'll live with it for the rest of our life, okay?
The city would not come out and compel him to remove
Sure,
surfaces.
because
We just wouldn't be able to
He's going to
approve
withdraw
this.
the application for the
Yes.
site plan.
Yes.
But he got the building the variance for the building, correct?
Well, he
But it's
would-
already, the space is already there. I
Exactly.
mean, the
Exactly.
concrete or whatever, the
Exactly.
paving is already there,
Correct.
correct? Yeah, okay. So if we
use
deny
site plans as
this,
an opportunity to bring properties into compliance
Sure.
with the code at the time.
but we can't force him to, if we deny this, we can't force him to go take 7.5%.
We would not go
Okay.
out and compel
Okay.
that.
And he's saying, if you guys, I'll just walk out and say, keep it at 67, I don't need to remove it. He's just trying to get himself up to code by getting a variance to approve the 60 to 67 and a half.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's been maintained like this for 25 years.
I got it.
There's no problem with runoff with adjacent properties.
You're trying to be legal.
You bet. There's a stormwater retention area on the property to carry stormwater off of our property into the sewer system and not on the adjacent properties. We're compliant with everything except the percentage. Okay, that's really we're just percentage. And we've been living with this for 25 years at least. Does it make sense to change things now and tear down some of these things? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense.
Luke, is there record or, sorry.
Go ahead and ask your question. It may be the same. You may be going down the same path.
Indications of other administrative grantings by the planning director of other site plan requirements that were granted here? You know, there's landscaping, there's buffer yards, there's things like that. Were those granted in this case?
The applicant didn't ask for any other sort of planning director waiver or anything like that.
So there's not other variances that are needed here? The site plan meets the conformance requirements other than these two things?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, yes, that's correct.
And I just want to reiterate, just to refresh the board, that when you're having your discussion and you're getting, down the path where you're talking about criteria points, that these criteria points relate to this parcel and basically the variances in perpetuity. So analyze that based on the parcel and not based on particular businesses or that may or may not be here for a long time or not a long time. We don't know that. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your discussions so that when we get to the point where, we're about to make motions or something, we have checked all those boxes and you're focused on those criteria for a variance for the land.
If that were the case, then we'd have to go in and with a new site plan, and that would require new information about stormwater, and would probably change the stormwater, and that would give you an option to get back to 60%. Okay?
Can one of staff explain how stormwater management impacts or has relation to the impervious surface, or does it? Requirement? So does the stormwater management, I see that he's got an inlet, he's connected to the stormwater. That has an impact on how stormwater flows on the property, but we still have this pervious surface requirement? Do those interplay at all?
Yes, I mean inherently in that stormwater's flow and are directed, but the stormwater criteria would be applicable to any property in or out of the floodplain. The 60% is, floodplain specific.
So it's going to comply, it's going to apply regardless of how well you might manage your
That's correct.
your
That's
stormwater on your parking lots.
That's correct.
Okay. And in this case, we have reviewed his stormwater plan and it meets requirements.
I can't say that. We're in the middle of review right now.
Gotcha.
I would like to say that we're reviewing for a building, okay? Not the whole thing again, okay? Can we put that on the record? You're not going to redo the whole thing. Landscaping, lighting, all that stuff. We're putting a building in a spot where there's parking, okay? That's it.
So everything you say is on the record, just so you know. So
Say what?
everything you
I know,
say
that's
is
why I'm
is on
saying
the
it,
record,
okay?
so, yeah.
All right.
Because what happens is when you go back into the offices of the planning office, there's no question what can happen, as far as requirements are concerned. And I think what we're thinking, what we're hoping is we can get a site plan with a building in place of a parking. That's it. That's all we came in there for. That's all I'd like to get.
All right. Board members, any more questions for the applicant?
Not at this time.
All right. Luke, there's no. No, sorry. Let's go to public comment.
Am I done?
Did you want to open public comment?
Yeah, sorry.
Want to make a
let's
motion
open up
to open public comment?
Sorry, I'm a little rusty. It's been a few months.
Natalia Lowther, 1480 North 1700 Road. I emphatically support the staff recommendation to deny this variance. As was just mentioned, the variance would run with the land and not with this particular business or building or site plan. It would be permanent. My properties have a lot of non-compliant things that have been done over the years. Some of them, there weren't regulations, and then regulations were put in place so that what was done before no longer was in compliance. Some of them are things that there were regulations and people just went ahead and built what they were going to build. And now I, as a landowner, if my house is damaged beyond a certain percent in a tornado or a flood or some fire, I am required to bring those things up to code, up to meet the regulations, even though that wasn't how it was before. Even though it's been this way for X number of years, I could be required to meet those new requirements. I have insurance that helps to cover changes of regulations. For close to 30 years, I've owned 10 acres of land on the east side of Maple Grove, blah, blah, blah. We went over that earlier. On many occasions, I have had floodwater from Maple Grove tributary standing on the portion of my farm where there is a pecan grove. I am now, that was in CRP program for a while, I couldn't graze it. Now I can graze it with my sheep. That's my business, is sheep. I cannot graze it for 120 days after a flood event. I cannot harvest pecans or anything else for 120 days after a flood event because of contamination from floodwaters. So what I'm hearing is that the noncompliance of this property having more impermeable surface than it is technically allowed to have, this business has been helping to cause the flooding that I have had on my property. I have walked hip deep in floodwater on the north end of my property, and it is disgusting. Even if the stormwater from his property is going into the city's storm sewer, we have to remember that the only way that water in North Lawrence gets to the river is by going through the 3rd Street pump station. And if that pump station fails or is overwhelmed, either because there's a power failure, a pump failure, or there's just plain too much water coming down, the water starts backing up there and the banks to Maple Grove are high until it gets to my pasture, and then it spreads out. So if he's dumping his bucket of water into the ditch downstream from me, the stuff upstream from me doesn't have anywhere to go except onto my property. And the economic impact of that is it could kill 30-year-old trees. I'm not going to be around 30 years from now to harvest pecans if I go in there and replant. I can't pick up and move the trees. As I said, I can't harvest nuts or anything else for human consumption within a certain number of days under the Food Safety Modernization Act. That's a federal law. And the same with grazing. Also, ecosystems that are wet many times a year can harbor increased numbers of snails, and those snails can harbor and transmit livestock parasites that can cause liver damage that results in death of the animal or condemnation of the animal at the point of slaughter. And that's a few $100 per sheep that dies. And so every variant or whatever that has anything to do with stormwater, I want to get up here and tell everybody Pinwheel Farm is not the default stormwater detention management system for Grant Township and the city north of the river. I do not consent to my property being used to allow other properties to exceed the standards that have been set to protect my property and everyone else's. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any board members have any questions? All right, motion to vote?
I don't see anybody on Zoom.
Thanks, Luke. Motion to close public comment?
I move to close public comment.
Second.
Your show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you.
All right, back to the board. You know, while this is the 67% what's currently there, there's obviously somebody nearby that's directly affecting, so definitely what I'm considering. Anybody else have any other feelings?
I mean, they already have 67.5%. I'm still trying to understand. He can just walk out and, I know he's trying to certify and make it legal, but I understand when she has a point that it goes with the property, but
Yeah, I mean, that's my general thought of like, I understand that may make this project non-existent or harder to complete now, but it's only a matter of time till a lot needs resurfaced. And if you approve this variance now, they can just repave it the exact same way without rising to the standard.
Go for it.
A question for staff. The variance that we approved, they can't get a building permit to go ahead and build that structure without this floodplain permit? Is that correct?
Well, in addition to a building permit and an approved site plan, there would be a requirement to get a local floodplain development permit.
Permit.
Yes.
And this process that we're going through right now is,
Would affect their floodplain development permit because their standards would be different.
okay.
I think we have a hard time saying that there would not be an adverse impact to the public health, safety, and welfare, given the public comment that we received, as well as just, in my case, as a person who's lived here for a while and knows what happens north of the river. I think, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, having sat here for 6 years and this being my last meeting, one of the really, really unfortunate things about this whole process that we keep going through is that we make decisions that last in perpetuity. And I think it's a damn shame that someone can't come in and make an application that for this use, for this building, for this time, this variance is in effect, and when that is over with, the variance expires. I've seen people come in here and say, oh, they have to have this to save this building, and then they go and tear the building down, but they've still got the variance for their new building. And if there is any way that anyone on the city commission listens to these things and can address that issue, it would really be a huge improvement. But that is not the world that we live in. The world that we live in is that if we grant this today, it's going to be there in 60 years from now, when that whole street is something completely different than what it is now. And I was willing to do that with the building. I'm not sure I'm willing to do that with stormwater. So I don't think the argument has been made that it doesn't damage the public health, safety, and welfare.
Go for it.
Question for staff. I'm still kind of hung up on process. If we turn him down on this, can he ultimately come back and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove 3,500 square feet of impervious surface and meet the requirements?
If the site plan document reflected those changes and their surface summary, little table reflected those changes correctly, yeah, they could proceed forward.
Yeah, by my estimate, 3,500 square feet is approximately what that's like a 90-foot wide which is the width of the property by 40 feet, something like that.
Luke, have you done any calculations on the amount of square footage you have to remove?
I think it's in the staff report, if you give me a minute.
You know, I think there was a suggestion that a parking islands or small areas might be able to account for it. It'd be 7% of the total site.
So,
I suspect it's less than that, Dean.
Yeah, I just went with the width of the property and.
Yeah.
I don't know if I calculated that number. That might be probably better for the design professional who.
Isn't it 7.5% of the total surface area of the site?
That's what
It
would
should be,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And what is the surface area of the site, just as a reminder?
Well, it's 67.5 currently.
No, he
No,
means
no,
that.
what's the whole?
Oh, the square footage, it is 47,520 square feet.
Oh, okay. Where did I?
3,000 square feet. 3,500 square feet, did I have that right?
Okay, I had a different
We
number.
said 47.
47,520.
That's the total property.
That's the total property.
Okay. Well,
Commissioners, if I may, Amy Miller, Assistant Planning and Services Director. There are other opportunities that could also create more impervious surface on the site. You could do pervious pavement. There are
Is it possible
I
for
can't
us?
hear this.
Amy, I'm going to turn you up. I'm sorry, you're on
Can't hear.
low volume.
Sorry.
excuse me, who is Amy?
Amy Miller is our Assistant Planning Director, and she also assists with floodplain
Oh,
management
okay, I'm
items.
sorry, Amy.
It's okay. Amy Miller, Assistant Planning and Development Services Director. I have also been handling floodplain management for the city since 2006. There are other opportunities besides just changing pavement to green space. You could do pervious pavement. So that would be an option. We've had other sites that have done that when they have been in a similar situation that they want to do some development activity that triggers this standard and them to come into compliance when they are over. So that is another option for them.
I also just did the math, too. It looks like 7%, 7.5% roughly of the site is just right around 1,500 square feet, if that sounds right.
I'm going to make a motion to deny the application.
I will second that motion.
All right, I think we've talked it out enough. I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay. Palos,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Rankin,
Aye.
Shalinski. Hopefully, we won't have a big agenda. I don't know that we have any items currently for that, so we should be able to get the training in. So,
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
I move to adjourn the
I
meeting.
would like
say,
to
could we,
Yeah.
just take 2 minutes to say goodbye and
Yeah.
thank you.
No, thank you.
I've enjoyed serving on this board with you all. I appreciate the thoughtfulness that people bring to the process. I appreciate the thoughtfulness that staff brings in trying to keep us on task, and I'm sure that I have been very frustrating at times, but that's why we have these bodies, to represent public points of view, and I certainly have them, and I've not been afraid to express them, and I'm really, really serious about what I said about the part of this process that I have found the most unfortunate and the most frustrating, because there are a lot of things that make sense here and now, but don't make sense forever. And I wish that there were some mechanism for us to make our decisions to reflect that reality. Anyway, I appreciate you all, and I will enjoy having my Thursday nights back. Thanks.
Thank you. We had a motion to adjourn in a
So
second.
I will move to adjourn.
Okay.
And Haley can second.
All right. All in favor? All in favor? Yep. Okay. Motion carries.
Quick question, so he's got approval of the variance.